all of these decorations up here. I just call it the Heshbon table. So over here we're starting with, as you all know, there's a tribe that is associated or connected with each of these months. And this tribe is Manasseh. And Manasseh, the word or the name means to forget or to leap up and away, just to leap over something, to forget something. So that's why I have that deer that's jumping over something, and this just happened maybe like a couple of weeks ago. And I know Deanne has deer, and in the place where I live, just a little bit out of town, I have deer in my front yard all the time. But if you happen to spook them, I have a fence around my backyard, and they just like glide over that. Like, they don't like have to like think about it. They don't have to, they just go whomp. And so Manasseh means to leap up and away. But Manasseh was the son of Joseph, and here's how he got his name. He helped his dad forget the hardships of the past season. So I'm just going to say that right now, Barbara. I'm just going to believe that you're here on this very day because you are going to forget the hardships of the last season that you have gone through. So here's the declaration. Say this after me. God blesses me to forget the hard things, to forget the sufferings. I leap up and over them. Now, I did not know this until this morning. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. And so I heard a church service, and he was talking about Manasseh, and it means to not only to forget or to leap up and over something, but it also means to expect blessing. So here's history of Manasseh that I did not know. And it is this. When God was giving out the land to the tribes, remember when they went into the promised land and then God said, you're going to get this and you're going to get this. When God was giving out the land to the tribes, the best was given to Manasseh. Now, I did not know that. The largest portion east of the Jordan was given to Manasseh, and the second largest portion west of the Jordan was given to Manasseh. And not only that, the land that was given to Manasseh was the richest and the most productive land. Say this, I expect blessing. Yes, I expect blessing. And so sometimes I like to look in the Old Testament and see what character came from what tribe, and I found out that Gideon, the great warrior, the one who was called on to fight thousands and thousands of an enemy, and he gets about 300 men. He's from the tribe of Manasseh, so he stood against the enemies and he won. But something happened to Manasseh, and he didn't stay loyal to God. So, and Deanne knows this history better than I do, but I'll just cut it short and say that there were 10 of these tribes that rebelled. And the king of those 10 tribes that rebelled was Jeroboam. And so he set up 2 calves, 2 golden calves, and he told the people to worship them and not go down to the temple in Jerusalem and worship. And Manasseh turned and they worshiped these false gods. As a result of that, Manasseh was conquered by the Assyrians and they became captives. And Manasseh became a lost tribe. You may have heard of that term. They became a lost tribe, and for centuries they were assumed to be like wiped off the face of the earth until 2011. Yeah. This was just like mind-blowing. 2011. I'm talking about the Bible days. The Assyrians come, they take them captive, and they are not heard of again. And so this article was in the Israel National News. It was just like a magazine. And here's what it said. A remote tribal group in North India calls themselves Sons of Manasseh. They claim to be the descendants of the tribe that was carried off by the Assyrians, check this out, 27 centuries ago. So somewhere along the way, this is why you're calling for repentance, somewhere along the way, they repented. Then they began to observe the feast. They began to worship God. They repented and they turned back to God somewhere in this 27 centuries. And so they got a hold of this, and Israel's chief rabbi at that time in 2011 examined all of their claims and officially recognized them as descendants of Manasseh. And now, it gets better than that. Now, they're in a remote place in North India, and they were granted the right to return to Israel after 2,700 years. And then you find them finally in Revelation chapter 7. Here's what it says. Manasseh will be fully restored to God and serve Jesus. Hey, there's hope. So there's Manasseh. Y'all have to get in your mic. Deanne. Six. No, 7, 6. Oh, minutes. Who needs a mic, right? All right. So we've got Manasseh. Lost until 2011. That was just like, you are kidding me. So then on this very same picture here, we have, there's always a Hebrew letter, and that letter is just pronounced noon. And so I get off on these numbers, and so noon is the 14th letter. 14 is the number of deliverance. What do you think that ark was about? Hey! So noon is the 14th letter, like A, B, C, D, and then you have alpha and beta and all. And so the 14th letter means deliverance. And then there's also, on these letters, they have a numeric value. Check out the numeric value of noon. It's 50. 50 is jubilee. 50 is freedom. 50 is fullness of life. All in noon. Now, noon, there's this book that I have, and it shows in the ancient times, they wrote their letters one way, and then it just kind of evolved, and they're written a different way. But in the ancient times, this will make sense in just a minute, noon, the pictograph of it in this book that I have on the Hebrew letters, it looked like a seed. Say seed. Seed time and harvest, yes. So also noon, this letter is just full of it. Noon also means fish. Fish, you know, is a symbol of life and life's activity. It's also a symbol of Yahshua. It's a symbol of the Messiah. It is a symbol of Jesus. And so we've talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Les made don't you just love it when you're teaching and one of your students say what you said? I mean, it's the greatest thing that you have ever heard. And so that noon then means and represents the strength of God within to burn up the entire situation and recreate the life that you desire. That's what the flood was all about. So once we know all that stuff, once we know 1 Corinthians, I'm surprised you don't have this up there, but once we know 1 Corinthians 3, we are the house of God. We are the ark of God. He lives in us. 2 Corinthians 13 says Jesus is in us. So once we know that, and it's one thing to say it, it's one thing to know it, then when all that happens, and this is what's happening in this appeal to heaven at 5:30, once we know that, once we know He's burned up everything, once we know that He really is alive on the inside of us, once we know that the glory that God gave Jesus as His Son, He gave to us, once we know that, we have the power to command our environment. Whether our environment is, I need to be healed, the environment of my body, or I need to command the outside environment. Once you get that, things begin to shift. So not only in this picture we have Manasseh, we have noon, we have the letter, we also have the constellation. And I think even on there, Stephanie's got the way that the constellation looks. The constellation is Scorpio, and it represents the scorpion. So the portion of Scripture that's connected to that is what Jesus said to them. I give you power to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy. So say this. This is our declaration for that constellation. Say this after me. I have the authority to be myself and tread. Listen, I want to tell you, I've tried to tread on some things when I didn't know who I was. Guess who gets bit? But when you know who you are, He's in us, I'm in Him. I'm not talking about being all prideful. I'm not talking about that at all. But when you have the authority to be yourself in Him, isn't that the name of the book? In Him, then you tread. So then we have Noah's ark, and obviously because of the flood, and Deanne already said it, the flood started on Heshvan 17, and it ended on Heshvan 27, a year and 10 days later. And when that flood ended and they opened up and they were able to go out on ground, the first thing that they did was Noah built an altar to God, and he sacrificed to God. And God said in that moment, Deanne already said it, I will never destroy the earth with a flood again. And to represent that covenant, that promise is another word for covenant, that he said that a rainbow was revealed in the sky as a sign of his covenant. So there we've got the rainbow there. So say this with me. I am in covenant with God, and His covenant protects me. God said, I'll never destroy the earth with a flood. And so we've got the background here with the rainbow colors. And I told Deanne when I got to church, I realized I've got the rainbow colors right here, the blue, the indigo, the green, the orange, the hello yellow, the violet. So it just represents our covenant with God. And so there are crystals that God has created in the earth, and there's a crystal that is connected, or a rock, if you will, connected to Heshbon, and it's the black onyx or the black agate, and we've got some of those right here, and they're just, they're just real pretty, and they have other colors in them. But check this out. I just did a little study on the black onyx. It means protection. It provides prosperity and courage. Now, this has to do with science. It has to do with the frequency of a crystal, but it absorbs negative energy coming from people that don't get it. I need a necklace, if you know what I'm saying, made out of this. Now, this has to do with science. I'm not talking about witchcraft. I'm talking about science and vibration. It absorbs negative energy coming from people and releases mental stress and promotes emotional well-being. So if you need one of these rocks up here, then get you one. And in Native American tradition, I love this, that black onyx helps you forget your past relationships and bring you into present victory. So here's my declaration. Say this after me. I am flat over it. I am past it. I am released from it. Do you love it? What a month. What a month. I'm over it. I'm past it. I'm released from